Here back with another reaction video. This time I'm reacting to Road to Rome, Hannibal Part 1, Second Punic War. Now, I know this is a series that I think someone in the past has asked me to react to, and I'm sorry it's taken this long, but I thought, like, for a new historical series to react to, so I thought, you know, maybe react to the series that I should have reacted to quite a while ago. So I should have done a while ago, I was meant to say. So yeah, this is going to be I'm going to react to all of the videos in this series. I'm not going to do, like, you know, like the other videos that they've done on this series where it's like parts 1 to 5 and that, because the videos would be too long for my liking to make good enough, in my opinion, to make good enough reaction videos. And again, I'm making the mistake of recording this quite late, so anyway, the usual disclaimer when I react to anything historical: if I don't show so much as what is considered a proper reaction, it's probably obvious I don't know much about the subject at hand, and if I do know anything, I'll most likely pause the video and, you know, spew my input, or whatever you want to call it, or ask any curious questions, which hopefully should be answered in the comments down below. So yeah, what little I know about Hannibal from Carthage, and he at some point crossed the Alps into northern Italy. So I admit I was a bit lazy learning about quite a bit of Roman history in school. So yeah, as I said, I've said my disclaimer. So yeah. The link to the original video will be in the description down below. Please go and subscribe to History March. Check out their historical content, and hopefully check out and support their channel. And so anyway, I've rambled on too long, so let's get this up on screen and let's get into this. To Alias. Hang on, sorry, I better pause this. Oops. Hang on, let me go back. The result of the war in Sicily had not broken the spirit of that commander. He regarded himself as unconquered. Polybius. I probably butchered that pronunciation. Right.
After General Hasdrubal the Fair was assassinated by a Celtic slave, 26-year-old Hannibal was elected as the new Carthaginian commander. The young general immediately made plans to invade Rome, but he couldn't begin the campaign before strengthening Carthage's control over the Iberian Peninsula. So Hannibal went to work. He launched two highly successful campaigns in 221 and 220 BC, extending Carthaginian influence beyond the Tagus River.
Wow.
But while on the return route to New Carthage, Hannibal was taken by surprise by a coalition of Iberian tribes. Led by the Carpetani tribe, the Iberians assembled a large...
So basically, it like the start of most military campaigns, there's going to be a point where it be towards the beginning, you're bound to get caught off guard at some point. Sorry, that was probably redundant the way I said that, but yeah, it depends, because I said I don't know much about Hannibal. Like, all I know was at some point he was an enemy of Rome, and at some point he crossed the Alps into northern Italy. So yeah, so I didn't know that Hannibal, because I don't know that much, I didn't realise Hannibal had to face so many insurgencies or rebellions.
Army.
And I just made myself so dumb
saying that. Against the Tagus River, then waited for the Carthaginian general to attack.
Wow.
Here, Hannibal showed his military genius for the first time. Instead of attacking the Iberians head-on, he erected his own fortified camp and waited. By day's end, his scouts found a river crossing to the southeast. During the wee hours of the night, Hannibal ordered a small contingent to stay in the camp and keep all the campfires burning, creating the illusion that the whole Carthaginian army was still encamped.
It's a great deception tactic, and yeah, great. Sorry, I don't know why my brain just froze for a sec. Great deception tactic, and I suppose you're trying not to waste, and also you can easily see that Hannibal doesn't really want to waste so many troops in a large pitched battle at this point.
Meanwhile, he led his army on a swift flanking maneuver further up the river.
Okay.
By sunrise the next day, Hannibal was behind the Iberian position,
nice,
feigning retreat towards New Carthage. Thinking that the Carthaginians were retreating, Iberians rushed to intercept them. But once they were midstream, Hannibal sprung his trap and unleashed his cavalry. Iberian infantrymen, chest deep in the fast-flowing river, couldn't offer much resistance and were cut down with ease by the Carthaginian cavalry charge. Those who managed to cross were trampled by the elephants. By now, the Iberian army lost all cohesion, and the mass of tribal warriors started fleeing. Hannibal ordered his army to pursue them across the river, completely routing the enemy. On the Tagus River, Hannibal had his first major victory, but Rome took notice. Wanting to stop Hannibal's expansion, the Romans made their presence felt. Already allied with the wealthy and powerful city of Saguntum, Rome declared it their protectorate, an act that Hannibal perceived as a violation of the treaty signed by the two great powers in 225 BC, which divided the Iberian Peninsula along the Ebro River into Carthaginian and Roman spheres of influence.
Okay.
A sworn enemy of Rome, it didn't take long before Hannibal acted. He marched on Saguntum and besieged the city. In 219 BC, Carthaginian army reached the outskirts of Saguntum. The city was heavily fortified, situated atop steep slopes and cliffs, high above the surrounding plain. Saguntines requested aid from Rome, but the Romans were busy fighting the Illyrians.
Okay.
Nevertheless, with provisions stockpiled, Saguntum was prepared. Besieging it would not be easy. Hannibal installed a blockade around the entire city and placed most of his force at the western end. Saguntines stubbornly kept pushing every Carthaginian assault back, but the siege went on for months, and the many assaults gradually wore down portions of the wall. Eventually, the defenders had to abandon their outer defences and form up behind the inner wall. Slowly and relentlessly, Hannibal's army made progress. And after 8 brutal months, the Saguntines made their last stand at the citadel.
So it doesn't say here if Hannibal had any siege weapons or any siegecraft, so I wonder, were they using ladders or to get the walls, or they just found some tools or that just to pick at the walls until they gave way? Because I'm surprised Hannibal didn't have heavy losses, you know, this being, judging by this map, a very hilly area with a heavily with a fort or castle-like structure in this defensive situation. I probably said some of that wrong, but
soon after, the city fell. Inhabitants that survived the siege were either killed or sold into slavery. After the fall of Saguntum, Rome demanded justice for what they perceived was the violation of the treaty, and claiming that Saguntum was in the Roman sphere of influence, according to the treaty, they asked Carthage to hand over Hannibal to Rome so he can be punished. But the Carthaginian Senate stood by their general, and by the end of the year, the Second Punic War began.
Cool intro.
Hannibal wintered in New Carthage, preparing for the upcoming campaign. He placed his brother, Hasdrubal, in charge of Iberia with 15,000 troops and 21 elephants, along with a fleet of ships to protect the coastline. To break possible tribal allegiances, around 15,000 Iberian infantry was swapped for 15,000 African infantry, who were more reliable, sending the Iberians to Carthage and Libya to bolster defences against a possible Roman landing. And in the spring of 218 BC, with the full support from the Senate, Hannibal marched out of New Carthage with 54,000 infantry and 8,000 cavalry, dividing his army into 3 columns. But beyond the Ebro, tribes allied to Rome were hostile to the Carthaginians, and it took Hannibal about 2 months to pacify the region. He placed around 10,000 troops under the command of Hanno, ordering him to establish a line of defence on the Ebro against possible incursions into Carthaginian territory. With 38,000 infantry, 7,000 cavalry and 37 elephants left at his disposal, Hannibal crossed the mountains and encamped on the other side of the Pyrenees. Meanwhile, the Romans divided their forces. Their plan was to send Consul Publius Cornelius Scipio to intercept Hannibal in Iberia. Simultaneously, Consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus sailed to Sicily with the intent of attacking Carthage itself, if Scipio managed to stop Hannibal's advance. Additional Roman forces were left to guard the recently conquered Gallic lands in the Po Valley, a region the Romans called Cisalpine Gaul. Back at the foot of the Pyrenees Mountains, Hannibal laid the groundwork for the invasion. Rather than fighting his way towards Rome, he did everything to avoid conflict with the Gallic tribes, mostly paying them for free passage through their territory, promising that his only interest is to fight Rome. Moreover, Carthaginian messengers returning from the Po Valley assured Hannibal that the Gallic tribes there would welcome him, and that they already began hostilities against Rome in anticipation of his arrival. This was welcomed news for Hannibal, because he knew the Po Valley could provide the manpower and act as a staging point for operations into Roman territory. As Hannibal approached the River Rhone, Scipio's army disembarked at Massalia to resupply while on their way to Iberia. The Roman general knew that Hannibal crossed the Pyrenees, but he wrongly estimated that the Carthaginian general was still far from the Rhone. In truth, Hannibal's army was only 4 days' march away from Massalia. Hannibal rested his army for 3 days in hostile territory and began preparations to cross the Rhone. With the Roman army just 4 days away, Hannibal wanted to avoid a set-piece battle with the Gauls, eager to press on towards the Italian peninsula as soon as possible. But on the opposite riverbank, encamped was the army of the Caveris tribe, a Roman ally.
Which is understandable, because you want to keep as many of your troops as much of your army intact as possible. So I suppose in a way you can't always avoid conflict through lands, especially allied to Rome.
They gathered all their boats and built a barrier on the riverbank in preparation to contest the Carthaginian
That's a good slowing down technique.
But Hannibal devised a cunning plan. On the third night, under the cover of darkness, he sent a flanking detachment under the command of Hanno, son of Bomilcar, some 40 kilometers, 25 miles, north. Hanno crossed the river and rested his troops for 1 day. On the second night after leaving the Carthaginian camp, Hanno's detachment again moved during the night, eventually deploying behind the Caveris camp at dawn. The trap was set. Early next morning, Hanno used smoke to signal Hannibal to start crossing the Rhone. As the Carthaginian vessels were lowered into the massive river, The Cavares army formed a line on the opposite bank. Hannibal was one of the first to cross. To the roars and cheers of his men on the western bank. As the Carthaginians started disembarking on the eastern riverbank, Hanno sent a part of his force to loot and destroy the Cavares camp, while he proceeded to charge at the Gauls near the river. The Cavares were stunned by the flanking maneuver, and they began fleeing the field in panic, unable to cope with Hannibal's perfectly synchronized attacks. With the Gauls scattered, the battle was soon over, and the Carthaginians hastily proceeded to cross the river. Most of Hannibal's troops crossed the Rhone by the end of the day, while it took another day to get the elephants across the river. While the Carthaginian army gathered on the eastern bank, friendly Gallic messengers from the tribes in the Po Valley arrived, warning Hannibal that a Roman fleet is anchored nearby. Hannibal sent his scouts to locate Scipio's army, and incredibly, not long after, his Numidian scouts stumbled into a Roman Gallic scouting party.
Okay.
Both generals now knew each other's whereabouts. Scipio quickly moved north to confront Hannibal, but by the time the Romans reached the crossing point a few days later, only an empty Carthaginian camp was left behind. Hannibal had no time to waste. He had to reach the Alps before winter. But as Hannibal's army began their journey over the Alps, trouble was brewing in Iberia. Scipio placed his brother Gnaeus Cornelius Scipio Calvus in charge of leading the army into Iberia, while he headed back to the Po Valley to assume command of the Roman troops there and prepare for the Carthaginian invasion. Scipio Calvus, now in charge of the invasion force, disembarked at Emporia. The Greek trading cities and the Iberian tribes in the region welcomed the Romans. But even prior to the arrival of Roman troops, the Carthaginians began to lose control over the conquered region, as Hanno's force was not large enough to conduct offensive operations. What's worse, Hanno only learned about the Roman arrival and Scipio Calvus was well on his way towards the Ebro River. He sent word to Hasdrubal, who began marching north with 8,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry. But instead of waiting for Hasdrubal, Hanno marched out with 10,000 troops to meet the 20,000-strong Roman army. Unsurprisingly, Scipio Calvus easily crushed the Carthaginians, killing 6,000 and capturing 2,000 troops, along with Hanno himself. Once Hasdrubal arrived, he didn't have enough troops to meet the Romans in battle, so he launched fast-moving raids along the coast. Carthaginian raiders killed many Roman sailors as they were foraging, reducing the effectiveness of the Roman fleet by half. Nevertheless, Rome now had full control over Iberia north of the Ebro River, a serious blow to the Carthaginian war effort. Moreover, northern Iberia would become a base of operations for Roman incursions into Carthaginian territory south of the Ebro River. Meanwhile, having marched his forces over the Alps, Hannibal would soon turn the Italian peninsula into a war zone, in a campaign that would elevate him to a general of legendary status.
Okay. While the location route through the Alps has been a matter of debate among historians, Hannibal's march through Europe's highest mountain chain became the stuff of legend. Okay. Okay. See if there's anything. Hannibal had spies all over Rome, even infiltrating the Roman Senate. Throughout the war, the intelligence gathered from his spy network helped Hannibal achieve some of his outstanding victories. Okay, I didn't know he had spies in Rome. Okay. And that'll do it. This has been an interesting video by History March, and as I said, I will be reacting to the other videos in this Hannibal series. So basically, if you like this reaction, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.